Hello everyone. Today's case is with respect to Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia versus the state of Bihar. So let us see the detail of this case. So the name of this case is Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia versus state of Bihar, and citation of this case is 1966 Supreme Court. Judgment came on 7 September 1965 by 5-judge bench comprising following justices. It was by A.K. Sarkar, Justice M. Hidayatullah, along with him Raghubar Dayal, Justice J.R. Madhurkar, and Justice R.S. Bachawat was there, who have decided this case. Now let us see what was the fact of this case. We all are aware with the name of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, who was one of the prominent politician. He was a social reformer also. So in this case, the case revolved around the Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, who was a prominent political leader and a socialist, and he was detained, and his detention was under the Defense of India Act on the ground that the speeches which he gives has a potential threat, and that is provoking people to outrage. It means, according to the state of Bihar, his speeches has a potential tendency to disturb the public order. So that's why he was detained under the preventive detention law, that is under the Defense of India Act, on the ground that his speech has provoked people to raise the voice against the government policies, and the state of Bihar has taken this step on the ground that he will be prevented by detaining, so that he would not be able to continue his political activities, and hence he will be prevented from giving any speeches, because his speeches has a tendency to bring outrage in the society, to provoke people. It means his speeches have a tendency that the people are against the government and they are raising voice against the government policy as per the contention of the state of Bihar. So his speeches, as it poses a threat, a potential threat to public order, so he was detained under the preventive detention law, and Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia have challenged his detention on the ground that by his detention, his fundamental rights are breached, and moreover, his fundamental right, that is as per Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, which guarantees a person to have the fundamental right of speech and expression. Along with this, he has claimed that his Article 21 is also being violated, which gives the right to life and personal liberty to a person. So Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia have claimed that by this detention, his two of the fundamental right, that is the right of speech and expression as enshrined under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, and his right to personal liberty as provided under Article 21 is being infringed by such detention. He also contended that state have exceeded his power, and that was the arbitrary action on the part of a state when he was detained under the preventive detention laws. And he claimed that that action on the part of the government was arbitrary. So the key question behind the Supreme Court was whether the detention of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia that was valid. So the issue which the court have to decide in this case is that whether the detention of Ram Manohar Lohia was valid one or not. whether by his detention fundamental rights are infringed or not, or there is any possibility that a state can detain someone under the preventive detention laws without violation of the fundamental right. So the court has to decide this issue, whether the detention was violating his fundamental right. And if suppose a state have to detain somebody under the preventive detention laws, then how that could be possible without the violation of the fundamental right? That was the key question before the Supreme Court of India. So the legal provisions which was involved in this case was Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, which guarantees the citizen of India to have the fundamental right of speech and expression. And when Dr. Lohia was detained, so his fundamental right of giving a speech to express his views was being curtailed. So this provision was involved. Moreover, he was detained, so his right to personal liberty was also being infringed by such detention. So Article 21 was also involved in this case, and his detention was made under the Defence of India Act. Hence, this law is also involved along with the constitutional provision with respect to the fundamental right. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A was involved, as Dr. Lohia claimed that when he is put in detention, so how he will be giving the speech? So his freedom of speech and expression is being curtailed, and if he is detained, then obviously he would not be able to live freely. It means, in other words, his fundamental right of liberty is also being violated, because Article 21 of the Constitution of India guarantees the fundamental right of life and personal liberty to a person, but that is not absolute. It could be curtailed on the ground of procedure established by law, and the Defence of India Act of 1962 was involved, because by invoking this act, his detention was made by the state of Bihar. Now let us see what the apex judiciary has decided in this case. The Supreme Court has held that the detention of the Ram Manohar Lohia was unconstitutional and invalid. His detention was held to be unconstitutional and invalid by the Supreme Court of India, because the court has held that the action which the state of Bihar has taken under the preventive detention laws was excessive. One can detain on the ground of threat to public order, but in this case there was no imminent danger when it comes to public order and neither to the national security. So the Supreme Court has clarified that as his speeches and his activities, be it the political activities, are not the imminent threat to the society, that is not breaching the public order, that is not an infringement of national security. So his detention was not justified, and moreover the court has also made it very clear that if you want to detain somebody under the preventive detention laws, then there must be a connecting direct link between the individual action on one side and a potential threat to public order. It means if a person is being detained, so his activity must be directly causing threat to public order, then only he could be detained under the preventive detention laws. So the court has clarified that there must be a direct and clear link between the individual actions and disruption of public order, then only the detention will be justified under the preventive detention laws. Moreover, the court has also clarified that as if there is a case of indirect threat or vague link is there between an individual action and the public order other side, then that could be no ground to curb one fundamental right. It means there must be a direct link. If something is indirectly affecting or a vague link is there with respect to the threat to law and order, then that could not be the ground for curbing the fundamental right of the person under the preventive detention laws. And moreover, the court have clarified a clear-cut distinction between two words. The court have held that law and order is a different thing and public order is a different thing. If you want to invoke preventive detention laws, then there must be manifest threats to the public order. To the public order, then only one can be detained under the preventive detention laws. If there is a mere breach of law and order situation, then that could not be a ground to detain somebody under the preventive detention laws. So mere infringement of law and order situation is not a ground of invoking preventive detention laws. So the court has clarified the difference between the word law and order and the term public order on the other side, and this judgment have proved to be a landmark judgment when it comes to making the safeguarding, or you can say safeguarding individual rights on one side, drawing a balance between individual rights on one side and state action, because through this judgment the court have tried to protect the individual fundamental right from the state excessive action. So this judgment is landmark when it comes to safeguarding individuals' liberty against the excessive power which the state used to exercise in the name of preventive detention law. Now there is a practice question for you. You have to tell that what are the primary legal issues which was involved in the case of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia versus State of Bihar. Option A says that whether preventive detention can be applied in case of minor disruption to law and order. It means if the action is such, if an activity of an individual is such that there is a mere breach of law and order situation, so whether on that ground preventive detention laws can be imposed. This is the first option. Option B says that whether preventive detention can be imposed in order to suppress political speech. क्या हम political speech को suppress करने के लिए we can apply, we can impose preventive detention laws? This is the option number B, or it is both A and B, that on the mere ground of breach of law and order situation and to suppress political speeches we can impose. It means we can apply preventive detention laws. Whether this will be the correct option, that is option number C, both A and B, or it will be none of the above, neither A nor B. Now let us see what subjective question you have. You have to tell that what are the significance of the Supreme Court ruling with respect to the Ram Manohar Lohia case when it comes to deciding the limitation of the state powers. A state has the power to detain somebody under the preventive detention laws. One can be prevented from doing such activity which is a threat to public order, but there are certain limitations on that state power. It cannot be exercised arbitrarily and in excessive way may. So what are the limitations you have to tell, and also you have to tell how through this judgment individual's right to liberty has been strengthened, which is being provided under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. Thank you.